In the early days, back when their arguments were nothing more than petty squabbles, Adrian laughed about her morning smoothie, saying he knew she put extra ice in there, the mornings after they fought. Leslie would smile coyly, admitting satisfaction at knowing it woke him up, and he'd laugh, wrapping her in kisses, saying, "You're lucky you're so damn cute." Leslie's health craze shifted into a lifestyle choice when her mother gifted her the VitaBlends, a blender she had seen in YouTube commercials touting its longevity. "How do they make any money if no one ever needs to buy a new one?" "I don't know," her mother replied, but she answered the question later, when she bought Leslie a brand new blender for Christmas. "The commercial says you're supposed to give me yours," Leslie laughed. Her mother scoffed. "Then I wouldn't have a blender." The whole family laughed, except for Adrian, who rolled his eyes and groaned. "Great! Just when I thought the other one was about to kick it." The blender worked like a dream, smoothing even the largest icy masses into gentle purees, with minimal sound. "Did you hear the blender this morning?" she'd ask him, when he finally made his afternoon appearance, to which he'd cough. "You make so much damn noise in the morning, it's impossible to sleep." By summer, she figured all her cute must have worn off, because his rage was pure and unfettered. He was out of bed and screaming as soon as he heard the crinkle of the frozen berries, so much so that she gave up on breakfast entirely, telling herself it was the new fasting trend. It was mid-July when she broke her fast. Adrian was sleeping on the couch when the clock struck 12, and her stomach let out a fierce grumble. She walked back and forth from the bedroom to the kitchen, casting glances at the sofa, monitoring his breathing for any sign of waking. He did not stir. Finally, the throbbing in her head screamed that she had to eat, but before making a move, she mentally walked through everything she needed, visualizing its exact spot behind the plywood doors to minimize sound. Not that it mattered, because as soon as she opened the first cabinet, an opened box of pasta cascaded down, sending bow ties flying. And, as if he had teleported, Adrian was beside her, screaming about her disrespect, mere inches from her ear. But she heard nothing. All her senses focused on one objective: survival. Early the next morning, she used the blender for the first time in months, her fingers tacky like drying nail polish, making 2 batches, pouring each gingerly down the drain. Then she made eggs over toast with avocado that tasted like cardboard, and she cried because she finally could cry. It would take her a long time to heal, and she wondered if the blender would hold up, doubting the capabilities the commercials touted. Every morning, she'd grab a container from the garage freezer, dumping the contents into the blender. She'd hold her breath, waiting for the inevitable whine, putter, smoke, but it never came. With each passing month, her eggs tasted more like eggs, and her heart beat a little slower. Maybe VitaBlends had created a worthwhile product, and she began recommending it to anyone who would listen. Sometime in the spring, her neighbor passed over a repotted mint plant. "Little shits went rampant this go-round," the neighbor laughed, and Leslie took it, marveling at how beautiful and fragrant it was. It sparked in her the idea to fill her entire backyard with plants. Within 2 months, her yard was filled with thriving plants, and she touted to her neighbor that it was the special blend she made up in her VitaBlends every morning. "It really is a remarkable blender." "If I buy that damn blender," the neighbor laughed, "will you finally tell me what's in your secret concoction?" "And have your garden in competition with mine," Leslie laughed. "In your dreams." "Well, okay," the neighbor acquiesced, but before she left, she asked, "What does Adrian think of your garden?" "Who?" "Oh, he's gone." The simplicity of her answer amplified her neighbor's curiosity, but the vacant expression in Leslie's eyes warned her not to inquire more. Well, good riddance. He was turning into an asshole anyway. She shrugged. Look at everything you're accomplishing without him. Yes. Look at everything I've done without him, Leslie thought, as she dumped the last of the contents of the blender at the base of a rose bush. Look at everything I've accomplished because of him. By the end of the year, the blender was still going strong. The freezer was nearly empty. Leslie's soul was nearly full, and she figured it was time to have a party. She'd just seen an ad for the Vita Blends showcasing all the cocktails it could make, swaying her hips in the liquor store, her and her garden and her blender. A week later, with charcuterie boards and fresh-cut flowers, Leslie opened her doors to the neighborhood and friends she had accumulated since reclaiming herself. She hummed around the crowd, entertaining like a pro, advising everyone on what to taste, and occasionally giving tours of her garden. And the most important part, not a single glass went empty. She blended margaritas and daiquiris, gushing to everyone about the silence of her blender. Look at how effortlessly it blends, she beamed. They oohed and awed as she refilled their glasses. After the last of the revelers had left, Leslie and her mom tidied the kitchen. Leslie was taking apart the blender to clean when her mother said, while cinching a garbage bag, "You know, whatever happened with Adrian would be considered self-defense." Leslie thought about feigning ignorance, but her finger felt the groove of a chink in the blade, and she remembered who she had been, who she was now. She did not cower nor cry. Her strength would be passed on from generation to generation. "Yes, Mom," she said, steadying her breath. "You know, this really is the best present you've ever given me." She winked at her mom, who smiled back at her beaming daughter. "Well, I'm glad you like it." That night, Leslie lay in bed, the light of her phone illuminating her face as she typed searches into Google, querying about the capabilities of her Vita Blends. She hadn't dared try it before, but now she wondered if she could blend bone to dust. The Vita Blends hadn't failed her yet.
And that's it for tonight's story. But don't worry, the darkness always has more tales to tell. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chilling episode. I've got something really special planned for next time. And trust me, you won't want to face it alone. So, stay tuned. And until then, keep your lights on and your doors locked.